Hey guys, happy Friday and welcome to the last close read of the week. If you haven't been with us this week, my name is Miss Green and I am a 4th grade reading and writing teacher at Uplift Meridian in Fort Worth. So I'm super excited to close out this week with you, and I hope that you are ready for a relaxing weekend. But before that, we are going to read one special piece today about a not so famous person from history, but she has had some pretty cool accomplishments that in my lifetime I probably won't. And her name is AnnieSmithPeck. So today we're going to be on lesson 5, pages 102 through 107. And so go ahead and turn there in your workbooks or your packets, and we'll dive right in. Today we're going to be going back and forth between this PowerPoint and a .cam so that you can see the passage as I write on it. So make sure that you active readers have something to write with, and we will talk about a couple things. At this point in the school year, as I mentioned earlier this week, you guys would be taking your STAR test and showing us how much you've grown this year. But now, obviously, life shows us different circumstances. So we will be spending this week talking about what great readers do and using different attack strategies like the ones that we use at Meridian to show not only can we attack any set of questions, but we can attack a long passage in those questions like great readers. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Before we switch over to the .cam for a little bit, I wanted to just show some text features. Now today's text, I'm going to just give it away pretty early. In our pre-read, we would determine that it is a nonfiction text. When you look at your page, there's a few things that you can see right off the bat. You see a name in bold. Her name is AnnieSmithPeck. And directly underneath it says American mountain climber, 1850 to 1935. So it shows you who she is, her name, who she is, and when she was alive. Scrolling pretty quickly just with your eyes, you see things such as a realistic photograph. That photograph has a caption. That's a text feature. You see headings, which show us how the text is chunked. You see different pieces where it shows you captions and more pictures and information about her. And at the end, you see some key events in her life, which is similar to a timeline, but it's just structured differently in this text today. So why don't you flip over and I will join you and we will start attacking our text. All right. So as good readers today, as I just told you, we know that the genre is nonfiction. Okay, and that lends us to one major thinking job that we talked about on Wednesday, but it's what is the author teaching me about the topic? And you guys practiced writing ATMs on the side of all your paragraphs last week. This has a little bit of a different structure, and I'll show you in 1 second. What is the author teaching me about the topic? Okay, our topic is a person. So oftentimes when we're learning about a specific person, you see one of two things, biographies and autobiographies. Now, as 4th graders, y'all wrote autobiographies at the beginning of the year. You wrote your own story. What we're going to see quickly here is someone else is telling Annie's story. So this is a biography. So I'm going to put that as a subgenre. And it's going to lend us to asking ourselves an even more specific question. What is the author teaching me about AnnieSmithPeck? And in this first section, we'll learn about her early years. So when you see headings like this one in a nonfiction text, you're going to ask yourself, what is the author teaching me about the heading and what the heading has to do with our title of the text? So early years, what are we learning that's important about AnnieSmithPeck's early years? So y'all are experiencing your own early years, and we're going to go ahead and start reading. Go away and play with your dolls, Annie's brothers used to tell her. They would not let her play baseball with them. They said sports were only for boys. This made Annie angry. She had 3 brothers, and they always left her out of their adventures. Annie decided that one day she would have adventures of her own. She promised herself to do many brave things when she grew up. So I actually underlined, Annie decided that one day she would have many adventures of her own. She promised herself she'd do many brave things when she grew up. When I read a biography or an autobiography about a person I don't know, like AnnieSmithPeck, I'm asking myself, why do I as a reader care? Right? If I'm taking the time, if Uplift wants you to read about Annie, what about her makes her special that someone wrote about her? So this shows us that she had brothers and that she wanted to go on an adventure like them. Annie and her brothers lived in Providence, Rhode Island. Their father was a lawyer. He and Annie's mother made sure that Annie was given a good education. She went to Providence High School and then trained as a teacher at Rhode Island State Normal School. Annie studied Greek, Latin, and other subjects that her brothers were learning. She was determined to be as good as they were at everything. So, in a fiction text, you would ask yourself, what is character motivation, right? What drives the character to be who they are or do what they do? And even though this is nonfiction, you can ask that same question. And here, what I've labeled is actually one of her biggest motivations. Turn it sideways. She's motivated to be as good as, if not better, than her brothers. So we see that early competitive side in her early years. So in her early years, we learned mostly about her motivations. So now I'm going to ask myself, what do I learn about AnnieSmithPeck and her developing skills? So she needed to learn skills for something, develop skills. And that's what we'll learn here. Annie received her master's degree in 1881 and became a full-time teacher. Teacher was one of the few careers a woman could have in the 1880s. So, long time ago, teachers were the only things that women could do. She taught Latin, Greek, and math, but she wanted to learn more. So in 1884, she went to Germany to study music. The next year, she traveled to Greece to take a course. The journey from Germany to Greece changed Annie's life. On her way, she passed the Matterhorn, a famous mountain in the Swiss Alps. Okay, so that flips you to your next page. I'm going to pause you really quick. The reason she tells us, or the author tells us that teaching was one of the few careers a woman could have, is to give you context as to why what we're about to learn about me is important. Okay, so context means we know what she did was special because at the time women were only really teachers. They weren't athletes. They weren't doctors. They weren't all these big jobs. They were basically teachers because they were women. And then before we do the next page, you see that she just mentioned the Matterhorn, a famous mountain in the Swiss Alps. That is the picture that you see here. If you've ever been to Disneyland, there is a ride on the Matterhorn, the giant mountain there. So it shows you a picture here. And always, great readers, always look at the photographs and read the captions. So it says the Matterhorn on the border between Switzerland and Italy is 14,692 feet high. So always covers its peaks, which is why at Disney you see that. So let's see why it's important. On her way, she passed the Matterhorn, a famous mountain in the Swiss Alps. Looking up at its massive snow-covered slopes, bring that down for you. Okay, here we are up here. Annie longed to climb it. All the great mountaineers had been up the Matterhorn. So, again, very similar to how she wanted to beat her brother, all of a sudden, all the great mountaineers have been up the Matterhorn. I want to zoom in on the choice the author made to use the word longed. Now, authors, they choose every word on purpose. Every word that they use is chosen for a reason. But I want to focus on this word longed. When I think of longed, I think of the word desired. Like you really, really wanted. Annie really, really wanted to climb this mountain because all of the great mountaineers or mountain climbers had climbed the Matterhorn. Annie had never climbed anything as high as a mountain, but she was soon doing so. Her first attempt was on a small mountain in Europe. She learned a lot on that climb. From then on, each mountain seemed easier. Her first big climb was in 1888 when she reached the top of Mount Shasta in California. Now I'm just going to underline that because that was her first big accomplishment as a climber. When she reached the top of Mount Shasta in California in 1895, she stood proudly on the peak of the Matterhorn. So this is really big, and I actually wrote in my notes, I did the math for you guys. It took her, she started in, let's look back on the first page, she started in 1884. She decided she wanted to climb the Matterhorn, and it wasn't until 1895, 1884 to 1895, it took her 11 years to train and people. That's a long time. Pretty much your whole lives, actually, if you think about it. All right. By this time, Annie had given up teaching. She found she could earn a living by giving lectures. Her climb up the Matterhorn had made her famous. Only 2 women had ever reached the summit before her. People wanted to see Annie and hear of her adventures. So this is where we find out why we care about who Annie is. Her climb up the Matterhorn made her famous. She stopped teaching, like being a teacher like I am, or like your reading or math teacher, and she decided to give lectures, so talk about her adventures and talk about mountaineering, okay? Only 2 women had ever reached the summit before her. People wanted to see Annie and hear of her adventures. So we're going to bounce back over to that PowerPoint. And what you'll see here, first, are 3 of the mountains she climbed. On your left, you see the Matterhorn, and then the next 2 will be the next 2 mountains you hear about. Now, in the pictures, they all look pretty much the same, but they're not. They slowly get bigger as she gets better at what she does. But we're about to read the sidebar here that has some more information about mountaineering, and I want you to look at this picture first. This, to your left, is Annie. Annie honestly looks like she's in a costume. She's got a rope, she's got a little pick thing to go with the ice, that's about it. When you look at the people on the right, this is almost nearly 200, a little over 100 years later, they have so many more materials. The correct boots, they have pants, they have big jackets, helmets. They're going as a team. And you'll see very carefully or quickly that this is why she became famous. People wanted to know how she was doing what she was doing so that they could become like the people we know today that are mountaineers. All right, let's keep going. 2 years later, Annie climbed Mount Orizaba. That was the second mountain on your slide there. At 18,700 feet, it is the highest mountain in Mexico. Annie was the first woman to reach the summit. Even this did not satisfy her. Now, I'm going to box that and we'll get back to why good readers would note that. Being the first woman was not enough. She wanted to be the first person to conquer a high and difficult mountain. So the reason I underline this whole section now, I tell my kids no highlighting parties. We're not going to go crazy. So that's probably the most I'll have you guys underline. But it says, even this did not satisfy her. She was the first woman to climb this mountain, and she said, this is not enough. We got to keep going. We got to stay strong. So she wanted to be the first person, woman or man, to conquer a very, very high mountain. Now, there was one word that I wanted to bring back to, and that was the word summit. And now when they talk about the word summit, let me just scroll back up. When they talk about the word summit, here we go, right here. The summit is the highest part of the mountain. So if you think the highest part of a roller coaster right before you come down, right, that tip top, that's going to be your summit. So when she says only 2 women had reached the summit before, that means only 2 women had made it all the way. Okay? Sorry, I had to rewind to make sure you guys got that word. So you can, by summit, you can write very top or highest point. Okay? All right. And that would be difficult to achieve this goal in Europe. Too many people had already climbed Europe's mountains. In South America, though, there were mountains that had not been explored. So Europe, she was leading the entire continent. All right? She said, Europe is not enough. I'm going to South America. That's where mountains are that people have never been. So you see here, Annie too. Great readers, they never skip a picture or a caption. So it says Annie in 1911 posing with her climbing gear, like the picture I showed you on the PowerPoint as well. Now, I wanted to read the whole page before we came up to here. This is where we will do a quick stop and jot to remind ourselves what's going on here. Now, we need to ask ourselves, why would the author give us this text feature that provides us more information? You have another heading, backgrounder, mountaineering. And we're going to learn about mountaineering and Annie in this little section. When Annie was alive, mountaineering was far more difficult than it is today. Why is it difficult, is what I'm asking myself now. People had trouble breathing when they climbed high. The air gets thin at great heights, meaning there's not enough oxygen. But today, climbers can take tanks of oxygen with them. Annie did not do so, nor did she have. She also did not have any other modern equipment to help her. Worst of all, she did not have lightweight parkas and other modern clothing. Her warmest garment was a snowsuit made of animal skins. It had been given her by Robert Peary, the Arctic explorer. She lost it along with much of her equipment when climbing Mount Husarian in 1908. So that was the picture that I showed you guys, right? Comparing today's mountaineers and her, she was in a much more dangerous situation, right? She did not have, I'm going to write here that this section about lack of equipment. I might even argue that it could be dangerous, right? If she was trying to get air or freezing, a lot of materials she had, you never know. Right, next paragraph. Okay, this section titled Accomplishments, I think, as a great reader, could be about her accomplishments in her time. Now, this is when we read a biography or an autobiography, I'm asking myself, why do I care about Annie? What made her so famous? So yes, she did all those things, but what made her a famous mountaineer? I don't know about you guys, but before reading this passage, I probably couldn't name a single mountaineer. So Annie became important very, very quickly, and this is why. Annie was more than 50 years old when she climbed Mount Yampu in Bolivia. It is in the Andes range and was thought to be the tallest mountain in South America. In fact, Aconcagua, now notice as Ms. Green just said that very confidently, you will come across words, especially cities, when you're reading high-level text that you might not know. Now we can look that up, or you can realize sometimes it doesn't affect your understanding of the whole text. So I used my clues of the word as a whole to go through it, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Aconcagua in Argentina. So anyone speaks that language, you can go ahead and shout at your teacher and let them know how to say it. In Argentina is the tallest. It is 22,835 feet high. Yampu is 21,300 feet high, which is still a long and dangerous climb. Annie didn't get to the top. An American professor who was climbing with her became ill, and they had to turn back. I thought that was really interesting. It shows that she, even though she's resilient and wanted to keep going like a fighter, she was a teammate and came back. So she did not. This is the first time we kind of see her experience failure in her story, even though the section itself is called Accomplishments. Her next challenge was Huascaran in Peru at 22,205 feet. It is the second tallest mountain in South America. It had never been climbed. Now remember, she wanted to go somewhere that no one had ever climbed. And Annie thought it might be even higher. She thought she could prove it was the highest mountain on the continent. She thought, I'm going to do this. No one else has ever done this. She started the climb with men she met at the foot of the mountain. When they argued over which route to take, Annie went on alone. It is very dangerous to climb a mountain alone. Climbers use rope themselves to someone in case they slip. Even so, Annie reached 19,000 feet before she had to turn back. Soon afterward, she tried again by another route. This time, she took local guides with her, but again, she had to turn back. Now, in class, I would ask you, what do you guys learn about Annie in this paragraph? To which you guys would probably respond that we learn here that she's very determined. Okay, we see that she tries, and she's trying by herself. Annie went alone, right? And that's very dangerous by yourself to climb. If something happens, you have nobody to help you. And so she ended up taking guides back with her on a different route. She still had to turn back. By this time, Annie was running short of money. Fortunately, a New York magazine offered her $600 if she would write a story about her climbing. Then the author goes to tell you that that was a big sum in those days. And again, like on the first page, they talk about how we were the only really teachers. This is where the author's giving you more context. If I told you, here's $600, you'd be like, awesome, thank you. But you can imagine that, right? Imagine $600 to her at that time in the 1800s and 1900s. $600 would be like $6,000 now. Someone paid her to write about her accomplishments and her climbs. Annie tried twice more to climb Huascaran. Each time she failed to reach the summit. She finally made it in 1908. She hired 2 Swiss guides to climb with her. They had a dreadful time. The snow was heavy and they lost most of their equipment. But at last they were almost at the summit, the top of the mountain. Annie felt triumphant. She would be the first person, man or woman, to reach the top of this difficult mountain. So she brought them for help, but she was still going to be the first at the top. But then a terrible thing happened. One of the Swiss guides pushed past her and ran to the summit. After years of effort, she could not claim to be the first person. She could only claim to be the first woman and the first American to reach the summit. I think this is very significant in her life. I even put, and it's okay as a great reader, I put an exclamation next to the paragraph. This is where you see all of her hard work. She should have been the first one. She was cheated by someone she brought. So I thought, literally, as I was thinking about reading, I thought, oh my gosh, I would be so upset. That probably broke her heart, right? All of her hard work. Now, before we go to the next page, don't want to miss the next page. So we're going to come up here and look at quick notes. It says, in 1927, the north peak of Mount Huascaran was named Cumbre AnnieSmithPeck in Annie's honor. And Annie received many awards for mountaineering. The government of Peru gave her a gold medal and the Lima Geographical Society for a silver slipper. So those are both notes about the climb you just read about to Huascaran. So that's why the author put it right there, just as like a little fact. Right? Often you see these in magazines or close reads. But there's a little bit of information on what you just spent reading over here. Great job. Okay. In the years that followed, Annie climbed many more mountains. She wrote books about her experiences and was one of the founders of the American Alpine Club. She climbed her last mountain when she was 82 years old. This is the moment when I really decided she was all about women's rights, right? She was like, okay, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm going to show up my brothers. But this is where I thought she's inspiring. When I thought about my grandma who's 82, or even me when I'm 82, I cannot imagine climbing huge mountains, right? And so I hope that Annie inspires you a little bit, like she did me, fighting for what she wanted and just proving that anybody could do it. Okay, earlier I mentioned the final text feature that we were going to talk about is very similar to a timeline. Now these are key events in Annie's life. I'm not going to go through each of them, but you will need to use this chart for one of the questions later. Now this is very similar to normally you see timelines written in chronological order on a line like this. time, right? And they're all marked like this. This is the same exact concept, it's just in a list form, and so you can look at the date and find out what happened at that. Now, at the end of a nonfiction text, we would write the main idea. Today, I want to focus on what great readers do when they're attacking questions. But normally, when you write the main idea of an autobiography or a biography, you're going to make sure you include the person, what made that person famous, and some of their accomplishments in their life. So if you would like to write your main idea before you send this off to your teacher, you can write down there. Great. I'm going to go questions. All right, so we look at number 13 is what we start with. Let me just show you something really quick that scholars to their question. This is our plan of attack strategy chart. So the first thing we do is we cover a question or hand or like a card even, and we figure out what the question is. What kind of question is it? After we do that, we find evidence. So we're asking ourselves what in the text shows us an answer, and we come up with our own answer. And then finally, we go through, we use the magic maybe, and which ones make absolutely no sense at all, which ones have no evidence, and ones can be argued to be true. And these strategies will you attack any of the questions because you guys are great readers and almost great readers. All right, so this first one, based on paragraph 7, which of the following best describes AnnieSmithPeck? First of all, my class calls these look back at it. Look, so if it gives you a paragraph and it wants you to talk about that, I need to read paragraph 7, right? This is which of the following describes AnnieSmithPeck. So we are looking for detail about AnnieSmithPeck. If we look back to paragraph 7, is this paragraph right here. 2 years later, Annie climbed Mount Orizaba at 18,700 feet. It is the highest mountain in Mexico. Annie was the first woman to reach its summit. Even this did not satisfy her. Being the first woman was not enough. She wanted to be the first person to conquer a high and difficult mountain. Okay. What I asked myself and a great question master is I'm going to say, what did I just learn about Annie? And I said that she continued to challenge herself and goals. Right? She became the first person to get enough in paragraph, and that was enough. So we went through that. We're learning the answers. Okay. We believe in teamwork and cooperation to achieve a goal. Did about achieving a goal. I don't know about teamwork and cooperation. But my magic maybe on A. She took on challenges only when she knew she could succeed. I don't think so. I don't think that's guaranteed. We have no evidence of that. She felt adventures were limited because she was a woman. Actually did not mention her identity in that graph at all. She had lofty dreams and set high goals for herself. Well, look what we've over here. That's why I'm going to answer your eyes, because D makes it obvious. Number 15. What new information these climbs does the reader learn in background mountain? So if we look back at our text, and this is the section I'm talking about. We've already made notes for one thing. She didn't have equipment. She had lightweight parts. She did not have modern clothing. He said this section would lack equipment and that it could be dangerous. So I might just put equipment. Put danger. it has. Annie received a word called Silver Slipper. Nope, didn't know about that section. Annie divides with her on some of her attempts. That's true, but it did not say it in that section. She's adventurous and determined in her childhood. So yes, she was, but this I'm not nearing with about childhood. Better defects, because those are all something that was mentioned. And he comes without equipment that would be consensus today. But he wrote the answer down D, because with evidence from that D happened in about around number 15. What does the text box key event the main idea? How does the text box key event support the main idea of the passage? So again, always I'm flipping back every single one. I'm thinking about looking at the text and thinking these are all about text features, right? So we're going to look quickly and say, okay, what's going on in this box? Key events. Gets your master's degree, goes to studying Greece, climbs, helps climbers, succeeds in climbing, climbs. So I see a lot of these are successful runs that she made, successful climbs that she made. So I'm just going to write, how does the text box keep supporting the passage? The main idea was her mountaineering. So I might say, maybe climbs, maybe accomplished she had. Okay. All right. It shows that Annie climbed Huascaran in 1908. It did show that, actually. It said that. It records, I'm so sorry, we don't know for sure yet, so it's a magic maybe. It records several important climbs and honors in Annie's life. Okay, we mentioned that, magic maybe. It explains why Annie did not succeed on all of her attempts. It did not say why she did not. It states that she was welcomed into different societies. Also did not say anything about society. So now let's go figure it out. How does the text box key events support the main idea of this passage? It shows that Annie climbed to Huascaran in 1908, or it records several important climbs and honors in Annie's life. So when you think about the main idea of a biography or an autobiography, letter B is pretty much what you're looking at. Not necessarily climbs, but accomplishments, honors. Why is this person important? But A is true, it's just not the best answer for this question. Gotta be smarter than the test makers. Alright, 3 more questions, y'all. You're doing awesome. Okay, read this sentence from paragraph 6. Another look back, but guess what? They're giving you the sentence. Paragraph 6. Only 2 women had ever reached the summit before her. The word summit most closely means, good thing Miss Green taught you that, the top or the highest point. I didn't want to wait till the questions to give you guys that. But please make sure you can use a dictionary, ask a friend, especially when you're home. The word summit most closely means meeting spot, highest point, level of difficulty, or time of completion. Well, quite literally, Miss Green has the correct answer over there, so B is your answer. I didn't want to spend too much time focusing on that one. I think vocab is a really strong place for great readers, but if you could not figure that out, I would either use a dictionary or go back and use context clues as she talks about how high she was climbing. 17. What is the main reason the author includes the story about Annie traveling from Germany to Greece? So now that was way back at the beginning, right? It talks about childhood and then her earning some developing skills. And so we know that when she went to Greece, she determined something in her life. She no longer wanted to be a teacher. So I'm going to say change in goals or a change in plan is what happened there. So let's see. To prove that she was an ambitious student, okay, so she did go to Greece to learn a language, maybe. To describe Mount Olympus, did not happen in that section. to show when she decided to climb mountains. Okay, so it's similar to the goal and plan, the changes. Or to explain that she studied music. We kind of left the music there. So to prove that she was an ambitious student or to show that she climbed mountains. The shift that the author makes by including this section about her journey to Greece is not to show that she was a great student. That came before. What this shows is why she chose to climb mountains. Why did that journey change her? If you don't understand that, you can always flip back every single time. Now, finally, what disappointment, oh, we're all going to get that one, did Annie face when she reached the summit of Mount Hesperian? So I put a giant exclamation next to this one. I don't even have to look back, but I want you guys to take 30 seconds to look at the very last paragraph on page 104 and figure out what that exclamation stood for. Why was she disappointed? Awesome. We are 5 seconds in, and you all got the right answer because you guys all went back to the text, and I'm really proud of y'all. And I said that she was disappointed because she wasn't first. You guys remember her climbers that came with her, cheated her and ran past her on the mountain? You would not be happy. All right. She was not the first climber to reach the summit. Oh, well, that's what we put. Let's check the other answers, though. The climb was not as difficult as she expected. Nope, it was really, really hard. The mountain was higher than she thought it would be. That wouldn't be disappointing. She wanted it to be higher than it was. Or she had taken longer to reach the summit than expected. And it didn't talk about time, so that one we can just get rid of. So A. Now, scholars, I hope that it felt like we just those questions and it was very easy because then you get to 5th grade, it'll be just as smooth sailing for y'all. And I hope you feel that way because I want you to realize that these strategies that you've been practicing with your teacher all year and how to attack a passage like we talked about today, those are strategies that make reading easier. And that's why we give them to you. So I'm super, super thankful that I got to read with you. I'm excited to tell my students next year about AnnieSmithPeck. And I really hope that you guys took some strategies away that next week when you're working on close read, or even next year, that you'll remember those magic maybes, you'll learn your passage plan of attack, and you'll realize that you guys are great readers. So you're almost to summer and have a great weekend. Thanks for joining.